personality influenced computer design and architecture. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, two names that are synonymous with the companies known as Apple and Microsoft from the mid-70s and onwards. While there's a myriad of ways a person could describe the differences of the company's corporate culture and attitudes, I think something worth noting is how Jobs and Gates' experiences in life leading up to the successes of the companies they spearheaded shaped how their respective operating systems and products were and continue to be designed to this day. A great way I could simplify this is stating, if Bill Gates embodied logos, then Steve Jobs would embody pathos. Something that is of significant importance is understanding what Jobs or Gates saw as the purpose of the computer. Gates, unlike Jobs, had been charmed with computers since a young age. In his teens, he already had a thorough understanding of BASIC, Lisp, and Fortran programming languages. Prior to dropping out of Harvard, he had devised an algorithm for pancake sorting that held record as the fastest solution for 30 years. Bill Gates understood the computer as a tool that other programmers would iterate on if they had a stable platform. It simply served as a function to the user, whose needs could be ever-changing. When commissioned by IBM to develop an operating system which would be known as PC-DOS, Gates withheld the copyright of DOS from IBM, believing that the success of IBM's personal computers would only incentivize other manufacturers to create clones that could and would run an identical operating system known as MS-DOS. This modular one-size-fits-all approach would be a staple of Microsoft's operating systems, whether it be DOS or any other Windows variant. The idea that third-party software companies would develop for Microsoft's platform was handy because it accelerated the development of software for the platform, which in turn would get Microsoft a bigger user base without them lifting a finger. Steve Jobs saw the future of computing from a completely different lens. Jobs was a free spirit, an appreciator of aesthetics, and a visionary in the literal sense. Like Gates, he was a college dropout but had no experience or knowledge in computer science. Instead, most of the talents were spent on the development of who and what the Apple computers were for. Design first, and then co-working with function was of far more importance than just function itself. It was by his insistence that the Mac needed to have multiple typefaces and proportionally sized fonts. This approach to the development of Apple's machines was successful, infuriating, and downright disastrous at different points of Apple's history. The notion that the personal computer can be looked at as an elegant appliance that every household should have was really beneficial in Apple's early stages because it immediately separated their machines from the competition. As an example, in a department store full of gray and sharp-edged blenders, if there's a single unit that is beige and has smooth, rounded edges, people are most likely going to flock to that beige unit. In tandem with the belief of aesthetics was that Apple devices should be a walled garden. Jobs thought and envisioned that the Apple computer itself was all you needed to complete any task, and it was strong enough on its own without any third-party development. This became a known issue with other notable colleagues at Apple, like Steve Wozniak, who insisted that the Apple II should have an ample 8 expansion ports, whereas Jobs argued for only having 2 because it was encroaching on the aesthetic of the machine. The Apple III was the first time this approach to computer design had consequences. Design was put first under Jobs' helming development, believing that the notion of fan noise from computers was something that needed to be left in the past. The Apple III, true to its advertising campaign, had no fans anywhere in its chassis, but a large metal-plated heatsink, which would allow the Apple III to overheat. To give some scope on how bad the Apple III failed, its production lasted just 4 years from 1980 to 1984. While the Apple II had continually undergone multiple revisions since 1977 and had been selling for 16 years up until its retirement in 1993. The slow burn of the original Macintosh is often regarded as the death blow to Steve Jobs' initial tenure at Apple. The marketing campaign was unlike any other computing company at the time and generated massive hype for the Macintosh. Unfortunately, even with it being one of the first all-in-one computer systems that had a graphical interface and mouse, it was not attractive enough for power users and often too expensive for their existing computer-adverse demographic. The dwindling number of hardware expansion ports and slow processing speed compared to competitors quickly became notable criticisms. After Jobs' exodus from Apple, he founded Next, which embodied all the Jobisms that we all know today. The company's computers suffered the same fate that plagued the original Macintosh. Jobs' secret weapon with Next was its uniquely designed graphical user interface. This would be the element that brought Apple back to life with his return to the company, as the translucent, bubbly, sleek look would be adapted to the aesthetics of its hardware and proved to be a hit with the computer-adverse demographic that Apple had initially cultivated. Two people with two very different thoughts on what the computer was for. This could be interpreted as an oversimplification, but I believe that in a sense, computers are made in our image. And while Windows and OS X now sport similar features, to this day, we can observe how the personalities of these two people had come to influence the past, present, and future of computing.